If you're after a basic action camera but your life isn't as action-packed enough to warrant an expensive GoPro, you could opt for a cheaper version with a huge variety being available nowadays. If you find yourself in that category, then this could be exactly what you're looking for. The Apeman A87. The Apeman A87 seemingly offers a fair bit at a very budget level price point, including video capture at 4K 60 frames per second. But that aside, it always surprises me how you can spend a ton of cash for a single GoPro camera alongside little else, yet a camera like this that costs a fraction of the price comes packed with so much in the package. Starting with a hard shell carry case, inside you'll find a way of mounting your new action camera to pretty much anything and everything. We have strap mounts, buckle mounts, spare adhesive pads, even down to zip ties, all crammed into the mesh pocket in the top lid, while in the main compartment we find extension mounts, tripod mounts, a handlebar mount, clip mount, even a wireless remote. So all in all, a very generous and very complete package. To put that into perspective, this entire bundle here, with the camera included of course, will cost around the same price as a single GoPro wireless remote. Anyway, getting past that, let's move on to the camera itself, the Apeman A87. Wrapped in its waterproof and ruggedized housing, we maintain complete compatibility with the GoPro mounting ecosystem here, with that typical finger mount and thumb screw at the bottom, providing the ability to attach the various mounting accessories included alongside. Reminiscent of the old GoPro Hero 4 cameras, complete with flat lens, well-placed plastic button covers, and a dual clasp at the top, we can release the rear door to remove the A87 camera itself. And if you're familiar with the rubberized and ruggedized design of the GoPro, you're in for a huge disappointment here. The camera is very lightweight, without battery of course, and well, let's just say it reminds you that you've purchased a budget level camera here. It feels as cheap as it looks. As long as it delivers what it promises on paper, that's not such a bad thing though, with a typical action camera layout, bearing in mind this is of course not water resistant when outside of the housing. At the front we have that main 170-degree wide angle lens. Specs such as the chipset used seem uncertain, although it promises to provide 4K video capture at 60 frames per second, as well as electronic image stabilization. We'll see how these perform in just a moment. Beside the lens we have just the power and mode button on the front, no front screen whatsoever, although this is a budget level unit so you shouldn't really expect one. Otherwise we have a pretty typical action camera design, with a 4-button arrangement for shutter, mode and Wi-Fi controls, which all feel robust with a tactile feeling click when pressed. On the opposite side are the micro USB, HDMI and memory card slots, all open with no plastic doors or port covers to fumble about with. Talking of doors, there's one on the bottom of the unit though, which is a bit of a faff to remove and can be easily lost, so care needs to be taken, but nevertheless this reveals a cavity for the included 1050mAh battery, supposedly lasting for around 90 minutes of usage from a single full charge, or 60 minutes when shooting at 4K, although you do receive 2 in the package, an added bonus. These drop nicely into place. On the rear is a 2-inch touch-sensitive display, and with the camera switched on, it provides a live view along with other useful data around the edges, such as current mode, memory card capacity, battery level, as well as some quick access menus, all pretty standard stuff. The screen itself is adequately bright and easy to use too, even under daylight, so there's no real issues there. Navigating menus can be done with the buttons, if inside the waterproof housing for instance, although thanks to that touch-sensitive display it's a rather easy affair. We can use swiping gestures to either side and switch between video and photo shooting modes, quick and easy. Alternatively, by tapping the mode icon in the bottom left corner of the screen, we have access to various other modes, namely time-lapse, slow motion and loop recording, or can again swipe to the photo mode, where we have burst, self-timer and time-lapse modes. Irrespective of shooting mode chosen, we find current shooting settings on the bottom of the main screen, which again we can tap to make changes, with video resolutions ranging from 720p at 240 right up to 4K at 60. Back at the main screen, tapping the bottom right icon provides the ability to place the camera into manual shooting mode, where we can adjust a couple of settings including exposure, ISO and white balance, keeping everything as clear and simple as possible. Main camera preferences can be accessed by swiping down from the top of the screen. All basic and easy to follow stuff here, with even a driving mode, in effect making the camera a dash cam for use within a vehicle, and a long exposure mode for some creative shot taking too. All in all, the menu system is well structured and easy to use. No reference to the instructional guide is really needed. Of course, the camera also has a remote app, and a single tap of the side button enables the wireless connection, after which we can use the Apeman app, freely available on the App Store, to connect to the camera. That's if you can connect. I had an awful time here and have been stuck in a never-ending loop, so if we choose to connect a camera, we have the A87 listed here as an option, and notice the firmware version needs to be above 2.0.0.1, which, if we navigate the camera settings, the camera is on 2.1.0.1. So, all should be good, right? Well, no. Every time I attempt to join the camera, I'm in a never-ending loop. Even though the camera states it's connected to the smartphone, and the smartphone Wi-Fi settings clearly show it's connected to the camera's wireless hotspot, the app just doesn't seem to acknowledge the fact and won't let me go any further. And I end up stuck in a loop even though the camera is clearly connected. Quite frustrating. The camera itself states up to exit, but pressing the up button on the unit simply switches the Wi-Fi off, so a little confusing there too. Maybe a firmware update will resolve the issue, but I gave up in the end and wrote the app off as a no-go, so a slight disappointment there. Although the remote that's included with the unit did work first time straight out of the box with no setup at all. It's useful for just starting and stopping capture, but little else. Okay, so on to the more important stuff, performance. One thing to mention straight away is the camera does get rather warm while in use, mainly on the side with the ports. Not a deal breaker, but just something to bear in mind while using the unit. Nevertheless, when it comes to video quality, it's okay at best, not overly impressive. Don't get me wrong, this is no Osmo Action or no GoPro, not by a long shot, but for a budget level camera it's, well, just okay. What you get looks very much like interpolated video, meaning the camera invents pixels to reach a determined resolution, and it wasn't as smooth as I expected either, even at the 4K 60 frames per second setting. Saying that, colours are represented reasonably well, and bear in mind you're looking at footage that's had no colour correction or enhancements whatsoever, and has been processed subject to YouTube compression. Although that's really where I see the best use case for such a unit in the first instance, social media. For anything more, you'll want to spend extra and get a higher bitrate and better quality overall. Now we do have electronic image stabilization here too, which is no Rocksteady or Hypersmooth, not by a long shot. Just hand holding and walking in this example here, and you wouldn't even tell stabilization is even turned on. It's far from the smooth footage we get from a more premium level camera. So don't expect miracles here, as stabilization is relatively poor. Exposure is okay, but it does take a few seconds to adjust to the best exposure setting when moving between different lighting conditions, which can get a little annoying at times. Talking of lighting conditions, capturing video under low light is a no-go, but most action cameras suffer from the same issue due to the small sensors packed into a tight physical frame. Video is full of artifacts and isn't as smooth as I would expect. When it comes to audio quality, well, there's not really much to say. Just like other budget action cameras in this price range, it's okay at best. Again, suitable for social media and for just getting a feel for your surroundings. And there's no mention anywhere of being able to plug in an external microphone into the unit either. So for anything more, you'll want a completely external solution. On the plus side, other settings seem to work as expected, including time-lapse for instance, providing the ability to blend some creative shots into your project. No issues there at all. Still, image quality is just like video, some detail is maintained and colour reproduction is relatively good, although you'll get much better shots from most modern smartphones these days, so image capture on a budget camera isn't something I'd really recommend regardless. All in all, performance is rather in line with what we'd expect from a camera at this price point. It's not the absolute best, but as a cheap all-rounder, it's not the worst either. A social media geared camera at best. So, to recap, the Apeman A87 is a bit of a mixed bag. You get a lot for your money here, with all the bundle accessories and a good quality case to wrap them all up in, And truth be told, the hardware feels robust and the specs made this out to be a great overall budget unit. Saying that, the video quality falls short. With electronic stabilization, that doesn't really do very much, and although the camera as a whole promised a lot on paper, it left me feeling somewhat underwhelmed, especially considering I couldn't get the smartphone app to work either, which definitely leaves a bad taste when it comes to the overall package. So, those taking their first step into the action camera scene and not looking to stretch the expense of a GoPro or Sony unit, or even those looking for a second camera you don't mind getting trashed in some more enthusiastic shots, may find the A87 a pretty good choice. For anything more than basic social media though, you may want to look at alternatives, albeit at a slightly higher cost.